This is our second meeting. So I'm very, very excited about today. We have an awesome keynote guest speaker. Let me just go ahead and quickly show us the agenda for today. So we're going to have a welcome. Really quickly, I want to go over who the heck are we and what the heck are we doing here. And then, as I mentioned, our awesome keynote speaker, Andy Cotgreave, is going to present on what the heck is a dashboard. It's a great question. So if you haven't met me yet, I'm Caleb. I work for Feeding the Gulf Coast, Feeding America Partner Food Bank here in the southern part of Alabama. Most of my working career has been in marketing, but the last almost 4 years now, has been working with Tableau to really just get our organization better equipped when it comes to viewing, collecting, and analyzing our data. Also want to give a shout out to Tammy Jackson. She has agreed to be the co-host for this Tableau user group. Thank you so much for that. The help is really, really appreciated. And not pictured here is all of you. You are all very much a part of this group. Your questions, your feedback, your comments, your suggestions are all welcome anytime. So please reach out to me on Slack or email if you have any of those things. So Slack, we do have a dedicated Slack community for all of us in the food bank and hunger relief space. You can scan that QR code and be taken directly there if you're not already a member. And again, if you are looking to be more involved with us, presenting a topic or just giving tips, how-tos with Tableau, or if you have any interesting use cases, by all means, reach out. So let's get to it. Andy Cotgreave, co-author of The Big Book of Dashboards, a classic, an industry standard book. He's the senior data evangelist for Tableau. He's the co-host of, which is a monthly video series about data communication, and he's also the author of the Sweet Spot newsletter. Both of those are great resources. He has nearly 20 years of experience in this industry, and he's helped thousands of people improve their data cultures. So we are really, really fortunate to have him. And Andy, I'll give it to you now. I'll stop sharing. And again, thank you for being here.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Well, yeah, hi, everybody. I think that 17 is probably 20, actually. I actually built my first dashboard in 2005. I didn't know it was a dashboard. I just had a boss who was he was a complete psychopath. He was a tyrant, and he would come and rage on people. And I was like, the only way I can get this guy off my back is to give him a printable page of information about what I'm working on. So I was just like, here, have that. And then it turned out that was a dashboard, and here I am 20 years later. So before I start, first of all, thank you for joining the user group. Thank you, Caleb, for being a user group organizer. I think I'm particularly honored to be speaking to you all today. You are all doing amazing work in what can be very challenging situations, and if Tableau can help in any way with the work you're trying to do, then that's a great win for me personally and the company as well. So thank you very much. I am going to talk for about 30, 40 minutes, but what I really want to do today is get you all typing, and largely where you disagree with me, be very vocal. I am inviting disagreement and debate. I find that very entertaining, and what I try and do. So I'm gonna ask. Excellent, Maxwell. You love to disagree. You are my friend already, right? So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions first. One is an easy one. Well, it's not. One has a short answer, and then the other one actually has a longer answer. So this is just something I like to do. I'm going to show you a quote, and I want you to tell me what year you think it was written. Here we go. So who said? Oh, let me just actually focus on browser. Who said, oh, hang on, sorry, right. Oh, I can't get one of my slides. There we go. Here we go. Millions of dollars are spent yearly on the collection of data with the expectation that the data will automatically cause the correction of the conditions studied. If you know the answer, don't spill the beans. I mean, if you've already seen me ask this question, don't spill the beans. But if this is a new quote to you, when do you think this was written? Hopefully, we'll see some answers in chat imminently. 1950. So we've got 2 for 1950. You see, even 1950, Liz and Tammy, it's far earlier than that. Lilla and Parker, you're like 2010. Yeah, this feels like an ancient quote, but no. Brandon, still too recent. It's not 1930. It's even earlier than that. 1850, Shaheen, good job. But now you've gone too far the other way. But I was inviting you to go back a long way. The answer is 1914. The answer is 1914, right? It comes from this book that a guy called Willard Coate Brinton wrote. He was a New Yorker, and he was really frustrated by millions of dollars being wasted on data every single year. And so he wrote this book about how to create an analytical culture. He was like, pie charts are rubbish. This is on page 1. You can process big data with these tabulating machines, 3,000 records per hour. And you need to think about how to present data, how to be innovative, and also how to be a data analyst, how to maintain an organization's data. And I just find this amazing. So I always share this at the start of presentations because we still have the same problem. It's 110 years later. I can't quite decide if that should put me in existential crisis mode because we haven't solved the problems, or just think, well, let's just continuing opportunities. And what we can do in 2024, is clearly streets ahead of where Brinton was in 1914. So the next question I want to ask you is, what is a dashboard? I'm going to give you a minute to type the answer in chat. So bizarrely for a user group, I'm just going to go quiet now for about a minute, and I'd like you to type in what you think a dashboard is. How would you define it? So I'll just I should have some incidental background music. What is a dashboard? Organized view of organization insights, a visualization of key data points, a way to visualize big numbers which are easy to understand by stakeholders. I love it. A collection of information. Oh, these are great. Right. Well, I'm going to have to stop this. A snapshot of key data points needed to make decisions. A summary of information to a particular topic. A dashboard present a variety of views. Overview of customized data. Yeah, I love it. A one-stop shop for getting information. Right. Okay. All right. These are great. Brackets, like my car's dashboard. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Laura. A curated collection of data visualizations oriented towards user goal. Brilliant. Right. Okay. We'll come back to these, and I'll just add to the introduction from Caleb. My clicker is not working, so I'm going to have to do this manually. So yeah, my name's Andy Cotgreave. Caleb's already done most of the introduction. Big Dashboards came out in 2017. We're actually working on a new one, which is much more about the process of building dashboards, and that's coming out in May next year with a bit of luck. This is me at the best named village in the world. This is a place called Great Chart, which is in the southeast of England. And my teenage daughters were not very impressed by being dragged along to this stupid place for a photo opportunity. They're like, "Oh, Dad, what are we doing?" Anyway, I love my data viz. I've been using Tableau since 2007, and I actually organized the first ever Tableau user group in about 2008. Andy Cotgreave organized one in the same month in Atlanta as well. I see user groups as just a core part of growing a community. So, you've asked the question, what is a dashboard? We think, why do we use them? This was a question myself, Steve, and Jeff had way back in 2016 as we started writing the big book of dashboards. And it turned out it was a really hard question. Going back further in time, Stephen Few had written an amazing book in 2000, or papers in 2004. And then in his first book, he defined a dashboard as a visual display to achieve one or more objectives arranged on a single screen so the information can be monitored at a glance. That was interesting. But that challenged us as we tried to define dashboard for our book. In 2007, he said it was a faceted analytical display, a set of interactive charts on a single screen from a common data set used to analyze that information. And I was like, we were like, a faceted analytical display. I don't think we would have sold as many copies or had as good a reception to the book if we'd have done the big book of faceted analytical displays. So as we tried to define a dashboard in our own book, we found that at the start of the process, we were like, well, the dashboard is this. And the number of words in our definition grew and grew and grew to some way quite late in the writing process where we were like, the definition's really hard. And in the end, we defined a dashboard as a visual display of data used to monitor conditions and or facilitate understanding. It's 15 words. Stephen Few hated this definition. He wrote a 2,000-word blog rubbishing this definition and saying we undermine our own ability to teach other people about this, which was a somewhat controversial response to the book. But we found that, like how I've asked you to define a dashboard now, and as we ask thousands of people what a dashboard is it a report? Is it a dashboard? People have very, very different definitions. So instead of really worrying about a definition and trying to fit in some sort of semantic alleyway that Stephen Few would have pushed you down, what we care about is that you get the right information for the right audience, delivered in the form factor that is most relevant for them in the shortest time possible. And shortest time possible doesn't mean you develop it quickly. You might have to spend a long time developing a dashboard, but it's really about getting the right information into the audience brains and for them to take as little time as possible. So this was how it all started when we were like, we need this book about we need a book about dashboards, right? We worried about the definitions, and we were seeing dashboards like this, right? Hopefully you're all having a little, well, not hopefully, you're probably all shuddering a little, being like, oh my gosh, this is a genuine dashboard that some colleagues built at Tableau in about 2015. Somebody who knew a little bit about how to use Tableau, but had not been taught anything about data design or data fluency or dashboard layouts. So all the information they were asked to show is on this dashboard. It's all there, but the actual consumption of it is utterly impossible. And so we were seeing these things, and we embarked on the first book, and now on the second book too. One of our key inspirations was an amazing book by Austin Kleon called Steal Like an Artist. And this is a manifesto for any creative or any artist, where he's very much saying there is good plagiarism. Well, there is good taking ideas from other people, and there is plagiarism. And Steal Like an Artist is very much about how to use other people's ideas, but do it honorably. And with Big Book of Dashboards and our second book, we've got loads of real world scenarios which people can look at and be like, oh, well, this one's about soccer players in England. But even though it might be about soccer players, you could actually apply the same thing to whatever industry you're in. Caleb says the more simple a viz is, the more time it takes to build. That's absolutely right, Caleb. Building simple things is incredibly, incredibly hard. You know, and that is our challenge. Everybody's challenge as a data analyst is that we are curators, editors, storytellers, opinion choosers, and trying to get it into your audience's brains quickly is very challenging. But it's a challenge I love. So we're going to play a game called Is It a Dashboard? You're not going to find it on the stores in any toy shops anymore soon, but I'm going to show you 4 dashboards from the first book, and this is all of the dashboards. And I'm going to ask each time, do you think it's a dashboard or not? We've just had that definition. To what extent does this thing confer with what your definition is? So the first one is from the National NHS, the UK's National Health Service, and it was built by Simon Beaumont, who was a BI director of the NHS back in 2016, and it shows patients who've been admitted into a ward in the last 24 hours. So each row represents a single person, and then the view here is a fully disaggregated view of every interaction they have had with a a health team outside of hospital in the last 3 months. And then the red dot shows when they've been admitted to hospital. So the 14 people at the top of the screen here have all been admitted to the hospital ward in the last 24 hours. Patient 15, patient 64, you can see, was seen every single day, spent a couple of weeks in hospital, and then since then has been seen every single day and is back in hospital. Patient 205, meanwhile, has been seen by a different team, but at really irregular intervals, and has been admitted into hospital here. So each row is a disaggregated view of a patient, and this dashboard is used by, well, right, I'll stop there. Do we think this is a dashboard, right? Yes or no? Now, type yes or no, whether you think it. Each one of these did go in the big book of dashboards, so we think they are all dashboards, but I am happy to hear reasons why it may or may not be. So I'm seeing lots of yeses. I love it. Catherine, can you feel free to elaborate on no? Because I love the no's. And so if anybody who's typing no wants to elaborate a little bit on why not. And there is no wrong answer here, by the way. You can even come off mic, I think, if you want. So, all right. Catherine, would you like to come off mic and give us?
I know it's a little bit scary, Andy.
Right?
To me, it looks like a report. Like the user has to play with it to derive any kind of insight. So to me,
Yeah.
I see that as a report. There's a lot of stuff there. There's too much stuff.
Too much stuff. Excellent. Thank you, Catherine, for being brave. Right. Anybody else want to come off mic and give me a little pushback? No. All right, Anna. Anna. Do you want to? You've gone off mic. Do you want to tell us?
Yes, same vein. There's a lot of information. Like you said, that it's de-aggregated information.
Yeah.
There's no sense of what's the action, what's the differentiation with each records, which ones are positive or negative outcomes. So unless you know exactly the context, this is very targeted, and it may be useful as a dashboard, so to speak, for niche users, but for the general audience, it's a little hard to kind of figure out what it's for.
Brilliant, love it. Right, fantastic. So you're both right. I'm not going to disagree. The thing you've said, Catherine, about a report or a dashboard, I've been in this field nearly 20 years, and I will confess, I still don't really know what the difference between a report and a dashboard is. It seems every person we ask has a different concept of it. So I'm not going to say your concept is wrong at all, but I see this confusion around a lot of times. And I'm not saying and I'm not implying you have confusion here, because you do not. So the thing I've not explained, the thing I deliberately hid from you here, is that this was a view made for the nurses and people running wards so that they could come in each morning and see a big overview of everybody who has just been admitted and people who are already in the ward. So down here, we've got people who've been in the ward for a while, and see a quick view of their recent history, right? So again, this was prior to this dashboard, they had to go and click on each patient individually, click on each button, see all the interactions. So it was the first time the ward people on the wards in these hospitals could even see a view of this data in one place at all, right? Now, there is a scroll bar. It would be great. Simon couldn't really work out a way to get out of the scroll bar. So it was a collected view of a lot of disaggregated information. Another thing that really sold this one for me is that I'm a really big fan of realizing when it is appropriate to use disaggregated information. And Liz, your comment sort of alludes to this as well. Sometimes people say, well, this isn't a dashboard because there isn't a big KPI showing number of patients overall. And I'm like, yeah, because that's a dashboard for a different person. If you are running the hospitals, if you are the executives in charge of hospitals, then yeah, you want to see are admissions tracking up, tracking down? What's the macro level data But if you're a ward nurse, you don't care. You just want to know, who are my patients? Can I look at this? And being able to see this gives me an idea of how to build an action plan to get them back out of hospital so they can continue care at home. And the reason that's important to me is that I see a lot of people think dashboards should be about highly aggregated data, which is only useful to the CEOs and the CMOs and the CFOs. People like me who work way down in an organization, I can't affect that big number, but I can look at disaggregated information. Another great use case for this is, if you're tracking, say, visitors to websites or people, I mean, even people engaging in food banks, when you can start to see an individual, I guess, or a family who's coming to the food bank more and more often, you can start to track at the low level people who perhaps you need to be targeting, and maybe people who are becoming more at risk, and you lose some of that at the aggregated level. So, and you're right, the action, Arnold, when you talk about the action from this in your comment, and as you came off mic, the ward people are domain experts, so they were able to understand the action they could take from this. But I agree, it's hard for us as non-domain experts. So there you go. And it's like, I think most of us agree it's a dashboard, and your disagreements are completely valid too. Let's go to this one. We're going to go back to the FT. This was a page. They unfortunately don't maintain this anymore, and I love them. It's the US economy statistics at a glance, right? And what we can see here is a bunch of little panels, and you're getting, at a glance, that's what the page tells me, a view of the US economy. There was an equivalent of this for the UK as well, and Japan. You would go to the page, and you would scroll down and see row after row after row of data, and then you would keep scrolling down and see row after row of data, and you'd eventually get to the bottom, and at a glance, you would have consumed information about the US economy. So, as we look at this one, who's with me? We put it in the book. Should it have gone in the book? Is it a dashboard or not? Yes, question mark. Okay, Caleb, explain your question mark. Liz, I love it. I suppose I love that, Liz. That's like the disgruntled, like, okay, well, he wrote a book on this stuff, so I guess we'll let him have it. Caleb, what's your worry?
I think, if we define it as simply a collection of information, then yes, collection of information. I think your earlier point was really key, and that is, who is this for? If your goal is to just quickly get at a glance the economy, then this is not a dashboard for you. But if you're doing research on the U.S. economy and the history of it, then you'd probably say, yeah, this is a great dashboard. So again, it depends on who the audience is.
Thank you. Tammy, I love that comment. It's a lot of dashboards. It's like almost a bunch. Yeah. Anybody else want to come off? Catherine, I can see you've come off mute. Did you want to say something?
Well, I don't know if I should. I'm like I just, to me, a dashboard internally is when I send something to my team and they light up, which means there was a question and the dashboard didn't actually necessarily.
Oh, did we lose Catherine, or did I lose everybody?
No, but a confluence of lots of stuff. Any element on that thing could be, an element on a dashboard. To me, it just creates confusion. So, I mean, I feel like there's a responsibility on the part of the dashboard to create or to kind of take a stand, which is, what's the question? What are we looking for? Kind of like a hypothesis in science.
Yeah. Right. You know what? I mean, I've been doing this talk in many shapes and fashions for quite a long time, and you've articulated something very few people highlight about one of the reasons Stephen Few didn't like our definition was that he's like, you have literally enabled anybody to say anything. They can monitor conditions, or facilitate understanding. He's like, this is a real cop-out because dashboards should always be about action and insight and question, as you've alluded to there a little bit. Now, in the end, as we looked at a lot of dashboards, we're like, well, sometimes people just want to get an overview of the business. It's like, what is happening across my organization? And therefore, it might not be focused and driving towards a single action. It might be, I just want the picture, right? I just want the picture. And again, you know, is that right or wrong? Does it change it from a dashboard to report? It might. Yeah, I'm loving your comments too, Arnaud, and obviously everybody else. Keep putting them in. No one has really objected to the single screen aspect yet, which is unusual. Maybe this is becoming less of an issue. Oh, Tammy, I'm going to come back. Oh no, you did cover, right. Oh yes, you did yes, right. Should it be on a single screen? So this was something Stephen Few was very adamant about, and certainly I used to be a long time ago. But this is how we interact with the world right now, and over time, I think the ease with which we can scroll up or down on using our thumb or using our mouse has changed, so that you know, in the end, we don't think your dashboards need to fit on a single screen to succeed. It's a really good goal to aspire to, but they may not need to. And if that means you think you're building an application rather than a dashboard, we're with you at all. Tammy, right, you've got this great comment about the best dashboards seem to be interactive. So I love that. Right, so let me address, first of all, so you could take the entire dashboard, right? There are 28 panels on this, and if instead of the entire dashboard you just took all away the other ones, and this was it, you just have 4 panels and it fit on a single screen, does this make it more dashboardy? I guess Arnaud, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, Arnaud. Hopefully I'm getting your name right. You know, if it fits on a single screen, does it make it more dashboardy? Oh, I don't know. Sometimes, oh no. Oh no. Thank you, Leela. I thought that was a funny way of saying no to my question, but I realised that's a bit of phonetic spelling. Thank you. Yeah, is that more dashboardy? And then another thing that I love about this is that in 2017 they printed it. So the day after the budget in the UK, they printed on a full page of the Financial Times a copy of the at a glance. I mean, at a glance is a bit of a challenge, but suddenly it's like, well, if I gave a CEO this and said, here is your organization dashboard, then it doesn't need to be interactive, right? Sometimes printable things are really powerful. The challenge, Tammy, with interactive dashboards is that when you force a user to, when you build an interactive dashboard, it means not all the information is available on first look. You know, you force a user to interact in order to reveal different bits of information. Now, that is brilliant. I love interactive dashboards, but that might not always be the goal. And I'm not telling you you're wrong. You are not wrong, Tammy. But these are the challenges and these questions we have to be considering all the time. If it's printed out and given to a CEO, is it a bit more dashboardy? Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. All right, number 3 of I've got 2 more examples. Actually, and I've got a little appendix at the end. This one is by Andy Kirk, and he runs the website visualizingdata.com. And this is some work he did for a Premier League team in England. It was Arsenal. So anyone an Arsenal fan, this was something they used a few years ago. And what it showed, go Gunners, Julia, straight in that, yeah, go Gunners. I'm a Man City fan, but you know. This is a dashboard that was designed to give to players when they reconvened after a match. So they'd play in the match, they would be wearing fitness trackers or exercise trackers, and then they would get emailed this on so they could open it on their iPhones as they went back to the next training session. So each row represents a metric that they get tracked on. So for this match, what was this player's total distance? The yellow represents the total distance they ran in that match compared to previous matches in the season. So the red dots are previous match, the 5 most recent matches, and the grey dots are all the rest of the matches in the season. And it's normalized, it's a normal distribution across an average. But what you can see here is total distance here was a little bit low compared to recent matches, and actually a little bit low compared to the whole season. High intensity run distance, meanwhile, this player was just a little bit above average, and you can see a really big spread. And then there's some detail on the right side. So here we have a single view of a bunch of metrics, so you can compare this game against previous games. Well, Arno, you've said tough season so far, but hold that thought, right? So what do we think? Single view, is this a dashboard? Anyone want to pile on, continue the pile on onto Andy? Tell me why I'm wrong. Right? No one's taking the bait yet. Is anybody? Oh, can anyone tell me why people say no, this isn't then? Or is anybody? Some people do say this is not a dashboard. No one's coming in with the answer. Right, okay. So the objection we get here is Catherine's still saying no. Come on, Catherine. Tell me why.
Well, it's just a list. It
Yes.
doesn't tell me anything.
I'll challenge you on it doesn't tell me anything. It tells the players what their performance was in the previous match. Is that not good?
Well, I'd want to see it in context. Like, I would want to, if I were a player, I think I would want to see what my performance looked like vis-a-vis others.
Yeah, brilliant. Right. Catherine, that's excellent. Right. So, of course, Catherine, I'm hiding information from you all, right? So I'm being particularly unfair in asking these questions. The way this was designed and intended to be used was the bit I said right at the start. This is emailed to players as they arrive for breakfast at their training after a match. So imagine you're a football player. You're probably not very data, or you probably don't think of yourself as data fluent or into data, but you are a very, very competitive individual being paid millions of dollars to perform. And so the goal of this dashboard was to bring data into conversations the players were having. So, I arrive at the game and go, well, look at me. Actually, this player didn't do well in any metrics this time, right? So this player's friend says, well, look at me. Look how far I ran in the match. I'm absolutely brilliant. Look, you were awful. And then he could go, well, yeah, but I actually scored the winning goal, right? Or I did save the goal from the tackle. And so the lack of context was a really deliberate choice. Probably not one we all make in all our things, but because it was there to foster conversation, it was like throwing little bombs into the players' minds that they would then lead into a conversation and use data to infuse their own contextual conversations about the match they just had. Arno, just as you've said, somebody said, so Arno, you said a tough season so far. It's like, well, if this person's had a tough season, they might not be doing well on the metrics, but they might still be the match winner, right? Because this isn't the match performance dashboard. So I think this is a fascinating use case. I like the way it's designed visually. In the end, that's why we put it in the book, because we just like this concept. But it's those other things that were I thought was a really intelligent decision by the coaches. And again, football or soccer, English soccer has been it's taken a long time for data to become part of the game. And so this was a really sort of forward-thinking decision by them to get data used in that. So, Catherine, you are dead right. I agree. And I think it's amazing how the teams use this by deliberately omitting some of the information we would normally put on the dashboard. And some people do say it's just a list. There's no charts, right? Valid. Arno, yeah, your shapes. Again, we could be adding we could be encoding, instead of using a circle, they could be each mark could be encoded with a shape to show win or loss. Well, genius. Yeah, that's a simple addition which doesn't add much cognitive load to the players. Very good. Okay, so now I think this is probably the one where you're all going to be like, no, Andy, you're just wrong. So I'm going to show you a chapter that didn't make it into the dashboard, into the book. Each of us wrote a scenario that the other two didn't think should go in the book, and this is mine. So there's a company called Crisis Text Line. You might have heard of them. They're US based, and they do emergency counseling for people, I mean, largely who are suicide risks, literally trying to talk people back from the ledge. Instead of being on the phone or on voice, they do it through text, SMS, and WhatsApp. And, so this is a really a company with a really great mission. And they need their counselors who are to be able to see the data and respond very, very quickly. And their head of BI, Bob Philbin, made an interesting decision, which I'll show you what he did. Here is their dashboard that they use to monitor wait times and number of counselors they have active at any time. And you might be looking at this and going, but Andy, this looks like Slack. It doesn't look like a dashboard. And you would be right. This is Slack. It's a text-only dashboard. Well, it's text. I'm giving you the lead, right? Is it a dashboard? Ignore the yellow highlights. That's just me highlighting them. So this gives us information about the KPIs in a Slack stat bot. Is it a dashboard? Parker, you've been with me the whole way. Thank you. Caitlin, excellent. Caitlin, we haven't heard from you yet. Are you willing to come off mic and tell us why you don't think it is? Hello, Caitlin.
So I said no because
Caitlin, is it? Can you speak a bit closer to the microphone? You're very quiet.
I'm sorry. Is this any better?
I can just about hear you. Go on. Go ahead.
Sorry. So I said no because there's no context or goals. It's not clear whether these numbers are good or bad.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And Tammy, do you want to tell us what your issue is? What do you mean by icons?
Well, every dashboard that I've considered a dashboard, you've got lines and like the circles representing a person or things like that. And like I said, this is to me definitely a report.
Right. Excellent. Love it. Okay. So
I mean, it's not even color coded. Like, well, like active rescues or
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So you two have and Princess, you're with Tammy, right? I suspect a lot of you that was certainly what Steve and Jeff thought. The lack of context and the lack of, just show us something. In the end, we had so many other great scenarios. This one was out. I love this as an example, right? I agree with you both. It's missing things. Where I think it is really powerful is that, again, first of all, we are not the domain experts for this organization. What Bob knew was that his counselors would know if 267 is a good number or not. Is 87% good or not, right? So he was confident that he could strip out all of that context. But in the end, we were like, it's stripped out too much for us to put it in the book as an example. But this one is really sat with me for 7 years because I think there's some really clever things going on here. And so I've been trying to convince Steve for 7 years. It's like, look, I think this is cool. And I was like, what is the minimum you could do to satisfy our needs? So I was like, well, in Slack in particular, you can use custom emojis, right? I was like, you could do up and down, you could do green and red, or so you could do like that. You could slightly tabulate the table, or you could just literally highlight the problems, right? I've not managed to convince Steve. I think I've convinced Amanda and Jeff. And it's just like, I'm always teasing, what's the minimum you can add to satisfy the naysayers? So I don't know if I've convinced anyone on the call. It helps. Thank you, Kate. I'm getting closer, right? And then I did this at another user group a few weeks ago, and somebody made the point that, do you remember when we were all playing Wordle every day? One of the reasons Wordle was so successful was that you could copy and paste the results into WhatsApp, right? So they were using text, Unicode characters, and emojis to make something that had a super low barrier to sharing. It was even lower barrier than sharing an image. And they were like, well, this is really good because this is super accessible to just share instantly because it's just text. And that got me thinking a little bit more, right? It's like you could build a visual of this. Here's the same information. We made up the targets. We don't know whether it's ahead or behind targets. But in order to build this and then serve this up in something like Teams or in Slack, you need a database, you need script, you need to be storing the data somewhere, you need a chart, you need charting expertise, which probably costs money. You might be paying for a Tableau license or paying Python developers. So that takes time and it adds quite a lot of maintenance. What Bob wanted to do, because Bob is working for Crisis Text Line, which is a very cash poor company, was like, look, I don't need a charting engine to build this text-only dashboard. I'm not paying for any charting expertise. I'm not paying for a license to a Tableau server in this case. So it actually saves money and time and maintenance because it's a lot simpler to implement. Tammy, I do not remember where he's pulling the data from. But whether there's a charting engine or not, the data store still has to exist somewhere. So I find this a really fascinating example because it pushes that definition. It's like, what are we trying to achieve? Bob knew he wanted the data in the hands of domain experts so that they didn't have to go out of their systems. They could see it in the flow of their work. And in this case, he was trying to do it in a cheap, low production way. So this is really about thinking about the goals. Maxwell likes it. Excellent. So we could keep going. What the heck is a dashboard, right? I went to Visit the Day today. This is what Tableau Public's Visit the Day looks like. When you build any one of these things in Tableau, you start by pressing a button which says New Dashboard, right? And yet, all these dashboards, well, a lot of them are beautiful stories. When you build something like this in Power BI, you build a report with pages that in some places in Power BI, it's called a dashboard. In some places, it's called a report. So what is a dashboard, Andy? Well, ultimately, where's my slide? I'll show you what a dashboard is. And we're going to San Francisco. This is me and RJ Andrews in Wells Fargo head office, pointing at this leather board. So this is a Stagecoach, and Stagecoach drivers had boards of leather that were designed to stop water dashing upon them as they drove the horses forwards. When the first cars were built, they continued putting these dashboards on there, even though that was a vestigial application. And then somebody had the bright idea of sticking a gauge on there so that drivers could monitor the car. And that is what became a dashboard. It's an archaic word that has gone through semantic shifts. And so we had an argument with Stephen Few over many years about what a dashboard should be. I'm going to come back to your comment about Crisis Text Line. I want to tell what I'm trying to tell everybody is, I don't care what you call it. It could be a report. It could be a dashboard. Is it adding value? And are you hitting the 4 goals that we talked about? So we've looked at 4 different dashboards, which somewhat challenge the definition, but each one has something different that is really important. The NHS one was a granular tactical dashboard used at lower levels of organization, people at the coalface, people dealing with, the low level stuff. The FT one, that's information dense, providing a global overview of a lot of information. And it can be printed. It doesn't have to be interactive. The Premier League one is a conversation starter. Context was deliberately taken out of it in order to encourage players to talk about data in ways they wouldn't have done. And the Crisis Text Line one was lightweight and in the flow of work. So I'm going to stop there and continue to take questions. Ignore the Sydney Tableau user group because I forgot to take that out. But what is a dashboard? Who knows, right? Hopefully you've had some fun thinking about this. Hopefully we've challenged the ways you can think of applying your own data as you move forwards. And with that, I'll say thank you, but I'll continue asking or answering questions. And you can go follow me on LinkedIn and follow my newsletter. So thank you very much. If anyone's got questions, let me know. And then I'll just read Arno's comment. So crisis text line is a use case covered in McLean's book, Data-Driven Nonprofits. I did not know that. What? How did I not know that? Arno, thank you. I'm going to have to get that book.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that book. Thank you for mentioning that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good primer for data use in nonprofits, and we just used it at work as kind of a little book club thing. Wow. And when you mentioned Christex line, I was like, I remember the detail that it talks about how people designed their needs and try to boost your awareness of the goals of the organization, and they decide to use Slack and that little defined KPI structure that they would quickly get snapshots anytime they wanted, and that apparently boosted their productivity tremendously. So great organization too, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm also glad that you've read the book and it hasn't turned out that I've said something entirely contradictory to what was in the book. That's a relief.
Isn't that nice? You don't get contradicted in the middle of a meeting like that.
Yeah, we're like, well, I think all your information's wrong. Okay, Maxwell, you would like to get a screenshot. I'm gonna go back to these are all mock-ups. Not actually, these are not the original dashboards. These are all mock-ups, but they looked kind of like this.
I will say I love how now everybody in the chat, when they type the word dashboard, they're putting quotation marks around it. Called out.
Wow, that's amazing. Where was the flip? Where did I break you all?
Yeah, pretty early, I think.
I was thinking that I try to think of my audience when I start building a dashboard, but this makes me reinforces that that's really where you have to start, because you have to look at what you're trying to answer. A lot of my dashboards, what I would hope and the reason I like them to be interactive is that I'd like people to question the data and get involved with the data and not just look at the answers that I've found, but go and look for their own answers. But it's not, it's difficult getting people to interact with the data.
It is. It's a real challenge.
At least I find it really hard. They want somebody to hand it to them already.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. Like, they want it prepared, diced, sliced, and they're not going to learn anything because I don't know what questions they have.
You don't know what questions they have, but Tammy, you see, that's really interesting, isn't it? Could you solve that could you find that out?
Andy, if I may, there's kind of an evolution typically, right? You first deliver targeted information through dashboards with or without quotes, and then it's kind of a conversion thing, right? Once people start seeing what they need, you can start introducing options, with extra filters and stuff to make the snapshot more interactive. I think somebody mentioned one of the key things would be interactivity. And I think that's what it is. It's a challenge when people are just tasked to consume the data rather than consume the data and explore it to find extra piece of information they may need. And that's the challenge between a very targeted dashboard and the more general utilitarian, here's 20 filters and pick and choose whatever you want. So it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Tammy, what do you think of that? Does that make sense?
I agree, but I guess, my dream world and I'll put that in quotation marks, if you were like in food banking, if you're looking at receipts, product coming in, uh, and then that we've spent more money on purchased food this year than we did previous year or this month
Yeah.
to me, I immediately want to click on a filter and look, okay, let's just look at the trend of purchased food or fresh produce or, and to me, when I look at data, a report, it gives me more questions. But I'm sitting in a little office in the corner. I'm not watching the trucks come in. I'm not going out and talking to the agencies. So when you're in a meeting, I guess what I'd like to see is that my dashboards would be a catalyst to conversation, like you were saying with the soccer players, where somebody would look at the report and say, oh, we're looking at the budget, if we do this and, how is Emmanuel County do, where they could drill down and you
Yeah.
can do all that in a dashboard. And I build the dashboard so that they can do that. And then they want me to print it out in PowerPoint.
It's
my personal challenge.
Yeah, and many people's challenge. I'm just going to show you one of the dashboards. This is one of the dashboards in the second book, and it's from the IndyCar team, Aaron McLaren. And you can go and watch Michael Gathers do an amazing talk at the Outlier conference. And basically, it allows anybody in the team, engineers, drivers, anybody, to just look at race performance over an event. And the reason I share this is because his measure of success, the way he measures success in the dashboard, is the amount of requests he gets to add new features or to answer different questions. I and it's brilliant because I've always goofily sort of said the sign of a successful dashboard is that it generates more questions. Now it generates more work, right? But it means people have engaged and realize they can answer question 1 and 2, perhaps, but then they've got question 3 and 4, and then you have to go and serve those questions. And again, so that's something of what you're describing there, Tammy, and Arno is alluding to that too. And the way Michael is trying to solve that is that he tries to keep this Prime dashboard is very much, he doesn't really try to add features to this. He tries to build dashboards that link in deeper to answer those more specialized questions. Now, keeping the main dashboard simple is one very good thing to aspire to, but dashboard proliferation is a different problem that he is now dealing with, right? Every choice we make is a compromise.
Yeah, this is such a great topic, and it's really, Tammy brought these questions up back when we first started this group, and it's really what led to getting you here, Andy, to establish this, hopefully a foundation. Caitlin asked a great question I'd love to get your thoughts on too, Andy, about making sure dashboards continue to be useful. And I'll just say quickly, one of the things that's really worked well for me, and is one question I had, which is like meeting with the end users. A lot of that is to learn what they want, but also keeping in mind if what they think they want may not be what they actually want or need. The other part of that is teaching. So if a certain chart type is the best way to display it, sometimes you're going to have to teach those end users how to actually read that data. So I was curious if you had any thoughts on that. Caitlin's question as well is like, what's the best way to approach that? Like, do you meet with your end users first to get what they want, or do you present a design and say, this is what we're going to do?
So, Caitlin, this is a very hard question. We have been struggling for many months trying to articulate this in the next book, Dashboards That Deliver. It's really hard, right? I think you need to be meeting with your end users as early as you can in the process. Then, employing techniques like asking the 5 whys. It's like, why do you want this dashboard? Well, why do you want whatever they say next? Why do you want that? Whatever they say next, why? Right? After about 5 times of asking why, that you'll get to the reason what they're really trying to achieve. There's even, I forget the name of the process, but trying to develop the user action stories that certain personas need. So as a food bank order processor, the format is as a blank, I need to blank in order to blank, right? So it's like Mad Libs, right? But working with people to get the answer to that story is really valuable. So in order to blank is actually the key thing. So, imagine, so some of you are uncomfortable with the FT dashboard, rightly, because it's like, oh, it's just an overview. But if it was as a student of economists, I need to get an overview of an economy in order to write my essay, then this actually works. But if it's as a member of the Bank of England, I need to decide whether to change interest rates, this probably doesn't work, right? So I think that's working with users really early is key. The challenge is users are really intelligent people, but it's nearly impossible to articulate what they actually really want until they see something, right? So then, as soon as you can, just get some goofy prototype in front of them, working on wireframes and getting things in front of them really early is a very good thing, because the amount, I'm just going to share this screen, you're like, oh, this is my interpretation of what you've asked me to do. And they'll go, no, that was nothing. That wasn't what I was describing. Are you stupid? It's like, well, no, but we're going around that dance, right? Get real data into this, something like this, as quick as you can. Because again, you can work with it, look like that, and then you put the real data in it and it just looks garbage. That kind of proves that the question they thought they wanted to answer, they haven't got the right data for. Right. So that's getting started with the dashboard. But actually, Caitlin, we're at the hour. Making sure they continue to be useful. At that design process, at the start, ask them, at what point will we deprecate this dashboard, right? Because it could be that if the number is always going up, if your numbers are always going up, then at some point they'll be like, we don't need to know that anymore because our numbers do always go up. I actually need to know what causes the number to go up. So define that deprecation criteria into the start is one useful thing to do. But I could probably go on. But, well, yeah, I'm writing a whole book on that. Right, and somehow that went really quickly.
Did yeah?
It is an hour, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, right.
We could have another one or two.
And yeah, I mean, I can stick around for a couple more minutes if we want. But we could wrap up.
Yeah, that'd be great if anybody has questions. Really appreciate you being here. This is really good. Yeah, this is one of those recordings I'll go back and watch a few times and take notes. And yeah, and just to kind of follow up, this Tableau user group, this will be our last meeting for the year. So we'll meet again in the new year. We've got some great things planned, guest speakers, things like that. Tammy asked, what was the name of the first visual data book?
Yeah, it was Graphic Methods for Presenting Facts. You can go and read the whole thing on archive.org. I wrote a load of blog posts about it about 8 years ago, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing and there's some really good quotes that reveal it was different times. Yeah. So some of the things he writes are very gendered, but that's the time he lived in.
I love that pie chart.
Oh yeah, it's like just go and read it. It's amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. And someone asked about how to stay up to date with this. Julia, just make sure you are a member. You join I think they call them chapters or groups. Just join the Food Bank user group, and you'll receive all email notifications. So, if you have issues, reach out to me. I'll put my email here in the chat.
Yeah. And I'll answer this question from Maxwell, and then I think we can probably call it a day. So, Maxwell, embedding dashboards create some technical challenges, but if you embed it, the closer you can get the information to the person's place where they are working, the better. So that's why Bob Philbin chose that approach in the crisis text line dashboard. I've seen some amazing stats where people added some multi-factor authentication to their servers, and then it just killed the dashboard usage completely, because human beings, we're kind of lazy, and so the harder it is to get to the information, the harder it is to win the user over to go in there. So embedded has that advantage with technical complication. All right.
Right.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Andy. We appreciate you so much. This has been awesome.
We'll see you all again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cool.